this video, let's have a look at term deposits under the banner of savings, which falls into our financial maths topic. So when you invest some money into a bank, you're given two options for how the interest is calculated. It'll either be a fixed rate or a variable rate. So let's see what we've got written on this slide here. The fixed interest rate is often lower, or will be lower, than for a savings account rate or a variable rate you may have often heard of. This also applies to other interest rates in terms of mortgages. You can talk to your family at home about if they've heard about fixed rates or variable rates. So what are the pros and cons of each of them? With a lower interest rate, as we've got written here, you get some certainty so that you know that it's not going to change. You know what the rate's going to be, and therefore you can predict about how much you're going to save in that account. Whereas a variable rate changes, hence the word variable variation. So depending on what the economy, I suppose, is doing in Australia, it can go up or down. So it's a bit of a gamble. If interest rates go up, well, that's good for you if you had a variable rate, because then it would mean you're getting more interest. But if it drops, then you're getting less, and that's unpredictable. Some people like to take that gamble to play with the highs and the lows, and some people like the certainty of a fixed rate. And with these fixed rate interest rate accounts, there's often some conditions that go with that here. The bank wants you to leave your money in there for a certain amount of time, and you can't touch it and withdraw it. Or if you do, that you're often penalised, and quite a hefty fee that you might have to pay for that. When we do some of these questions, there's some tables that we're going to work through, and you'll be provided those if you're asked in a test. So we've got two here. Having a look at this, what's it saying? So this balance bank that it's called, it's just the name of a pretend bank, for their term deposits, so that's what we're talking about for a fixed interest rate. Let's have a look at so the term here is how long that you're going to have it in the bank for. And you might notice that the longer that you leave it in, what do you notice about the rate? From 3 months down to 24 months, it's increasing. So if you're committing to leaving your money in the bank for longer, you'll get a higher rate. And what about going across here? Well, you notice that the rate increases as well, and that's got to do with how much that you deposit into the bank. So as teenagers, it's very unlikely that you're ever going to deposit $50,000, but obviously as you get older as an adult, you might have more funds to put in. Now there's some conditions here. Let's look down at the bottom, particularly this one here. How is the interest calculated? So it says that the interest is credited monthly and is reinvested. So think about that. The interest that's worked out, that amount of money goes back into the account, and therefore the following month interest is calculated on that new amount. Is that simple or compound interest, do you think? It's compound, because it's compounding the amount. So whenever you see those words, that it's reinvested, you need to know, that I need to do compound interest on that question. What about simple interest? That's on this one here. I might just mention that first then. Here is the keywords for simple interest. If the interest is paid directly to the investor, so it comes back to you month at a time, it's not going to go back in and adding it onto the principal amount, then that would be simple interest. And having a look here, this pretend cash credit union for their term deposit rates, similar things. The longer that you leave it in, the rate increases that you're getting, and also the more that you put in, the rate increases as well. Let's do an example. So Rachel here invests $24,000 in a balance bank term deposit for 2 years, and it's credited monthly. We have to work out the total interest generated. So let's look at the table first. $24,000. Which column does that fall into? This middle column here, $24,000 is in there. How long does she leave it in the bank for? 2 years. Well, it doesn't say 2 years here, it's in months. How many months is 2 years? 24 months. So we're in this row here, and we specifically want the middle one. So 2.55%, that's the interest rate that we're going to need for our question. So now we've got some space to do that here. This is just a note to remind us where to look. This is in South Australia 2023 using a particular textbook here. So how do we work this out? We use our compound interest that we've been doing on our graphics calculators. Let's fill out one number at a time. Rn. So remember, that is how frequently it happens and times by the number of years. Hence this word here, it's credited monthly. So that means it happens 12 times a year. For how many years? 2. What else do we have to work out here? You remember that the numbers that go down for the PY and the CY is, again, how often that happens, that frequency. Next, let's do the principal value. So she invests $24,000, so the money's going away from her, so we make that a what? A negative number, so negative 24,000. What else do we know? We know the rate, 2.55%. Remember, we just put 2.55, not a percent. What's left? Our payment, we always make 0. So our future value, you might put a question mark or have it as a 0 on your graphics calculator. Solve for that one. This is on Casio, of course. And the interest that we are left with there is $1,254.38. So that's how much total interest is generated across those 2 years. And there's actually a formula to do this by hand if you're interested to see what's going on behind the graphics calculator. Have a look through that. Check with your teacher if you need to know the formula or not. There's some questions to do. Thanks for joining me.